Hey everybody, so in today's video I want to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, things that I love doing, which is investing in dividend stocks. And a lot of you may not know what a dividend is or how to find those stocks, and we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about, can we get to $1,000 a month in passive income investing in dividend stocks? Let's get started. So one of my favorite types of income in the whole world is passive income. And passive income is income that you earn while you're essentially not doing anything. Maybe you're out fishing and you're still earning money. My son and I like to do that a lot. And you can earn passive income in many different ways. A lot of times it's from owning an asset that pays you. You know, you could have rental income, or you could own a stock that pays you dividends, which is what we're going to talk about today. So what is a dividend? A dividend essentially is a company paying you from their profit. So if you own a certain number of shares in a company that pays a dividend, every quarter, usually, some stocks pay once a year or even monthly, but usually it's quarterly. So every quarter you're gonna get a payment, you know, from the number of shares that you own in that particular company. And that's the dividend payment. And usually the average is about 3%. That varies drastically depending on the company, but that's the average that we're gonna kind of work with for the most part. So one of the other things that people don't think about is not only are you getting paid the dividend, you also get capital appreciation on the stock that you own. So over time, the value of the stock that you own is gonna increase, and it kind of snowballs because the amount of dividend that you get paid will increase as well as the amount of stock that you own increases. So I'm a real big proponent of starting custodial accounts or investor accounts for children. I have a 10-year-old who has a custodial account, and I have a number of stocks in his portfolio already. Many of them are dividend stocks because over time, you know, again, he's 10 years old, but over 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 years, that's going to snowball and keep growing, where the stock is going to grow in value, but that dividend's also going to keep increasing. And he's also earning money from just owning that stock. And this is something that isn't just good for kids, but it's good for us as well to diversify our portfolios and bring in those dividend producing stocks along with the growth stocks that you may own. You know, a lot of us, especially in the world today, tend to focus on growth stocks. You know, which stock's going to go up the highest in the next year? Is it Facebook? Is it Apple? Apple actually pays a dividend though. Is it going to be Google? Is it going to be Amazon? And many of these large growth stocks do not pay a dividend because they are so focused on growing their companies. They don't want to have to pay all their shareholders money. Whereas dividend producing stocks are really more stable companies, and there's certain qualifications that you kind of want to look for when you want to invest in dividend producing stocks. And we're going to talk about those in just a second. So how do we find these dividend producing stocks? There's a couple different ways. One is our own research, which I'm going to show you a free tool online that I use to do some research. And then the other is something called the Dividend Aristocrats List. I have to say that slowly because so many times I've tripped over that and said who knows what. It's a good tongue twister. So the Dividend Aristocrats List is an arbitrary list that's put together every year. It's not put together by a specific organization, I don't think. There's usually between 50 and 70 stocks in that list, and there's certain qualifications you have to get on that list. And we'll look at the list in just a second, and I'll put a link in the description below this video if you want to look at it as well. But in order to get on the Dividend Aristocrats List, see, I messed it up already. You have to be part of the S&P 500. You have to have increased your dividend payout every year for the past 25 years, which is quite a long time. Your company has to have a market cap of at least $3 billion. And then you also have to have good liquidity in the market. The qualification is you have to have at least $5 million in shares traded every single day for the past 3 months. So those are the major qualifications to get on the Aristocrats list. Let's go look at the list right now. All right, so I just pulled up the 2022 Dividend Aristocrats list from US News and World Report. It doesn't really matter where you find it. And so if I scroll down, they've got some information on it, and you'll see the list of companies. They've got 65 of them this year. And you'll see the dividend yield that they pay out, the number of years that their dividend has grown, and then the company and the ticker symbol. And you'll see a lot of really well-known companies here, and some you may not notice right off the bat, but if you look at the subsidiaries or the companies underneath this umbrella company, you'll certainly recognize them. You know, Caterpillar, Chevron, you know, Coca-Cola's in here. That's, you know, a very good company to invest in from a dividend standpoint. And we talked earlier about how the average is kind of about 3%. And you'll see that, scrolling through here, that if you take the average of a lot of these, maybe it's just a hair under 3% right now, that's typically what you'll get. So that's what you're looking for. And you'll get companies that have higher and lower dividend payouts. And we're going to talk about which ones you should look for in just a couple minutes. So that's the Dividend Aristocrats List. Another way you can look for good dividend stocks to invest in is do your own research. Now, I have a Schwab account, and many of you may or may not have a Schwab account. That's pretty obvious, may or may not. How general can I be? So Schwab and a lot of other brokerage platforms have good research tools where you can come in and use their stock screeners. I'm not going to walk through all the steps for Schwab here, but basically I can filter through, different criteria for looking for dividend producing stocks in Schwab. I will warn you though that a lot of platforms that people use now, such as Robinhood, do not have stock screeners like this available. Even if you have a Robinhood Gold subscription, unfortunately, they don't have the tools out there to do the research that you need to find companies like this. So there is one other website called finviz.com. I'll put a link in the description below. There is a paid plan for Finviz, but you do not need it to get the most basic research that you need. So I encourage you just to jump over to Finviz and check it out. And we're gonna come in here and click on Screener. And so this pulls up the stock screener, and there's a lot of different tabs and information going on here. But we're gonna go right in the middle here and click on dividend yield and say we wanna find stocks with a dividend yield over, let's say over 3%, just for the heck of it. And we see 1,678 stocks. Now, there's different things we can do to further filter this. And actually, I'm gonna come down here to this row of tabs and click on financial. And that will show the actual dividend yield that each of these companies has in this column here. And then if I come back up to the top and say I want to filter further, I'm going to click on fundamental and say there's a lot of different ways we could filter this, but say I want to do growth. So EPS growth for the next 5 years. So I want it to be over 5%. And that should get us down. Yep, now we're down to 418 stocks. And again, you can keep filtering these things by all these different criteria, and then you can start to research the companies as far as, is this the company I want to invest in? Is this a company I think is going to be around long term that's paying a decent dividend? So how do we pick the stocks that we want to invest in if we're looking for dividend producing stocks? The first is obviously the Dividend Aristocrats List. I would start there. That's a great list of very stable companies, because you have to be stable and you have to be a large company to get onto that list to begin with. So that's a great place to start. If you're doing your own research, there's some certain criteria, and I'm going to cheat and look off of my list up here because I won't remember all of these. One is you want to find a company with good cash flow. You want to find a company with good long-term expected earnings growth from 5 to 15%. And again, if you have a good stock screener, you can find these companies. You want a company with low debt to equity ratios. And then there's many other factors you can consider. I always follow the Warren Buffett model as well, where I want to invest in companies that I know and understand. So if it's a company you just have no idea what they really do, even after you do some research and read their prospectus and they're just kind of confusing to you, then I recommend staying away from them. That's really kind of how I invest, is I want to invest in companies that I truly understand what they're doing, what they're about, and that I believe that they're going to be around for the long term. So the last question, which was the title of this video, is how do we get to that kind of magical $1,000 a month in passive income from dividend producing stocks? And let's assume our 3% again. If you have your 3%, dividend paid every quarter, then you really need a portfolio value of about $400,000, which for some people you just freaked out and you're like, well, I'm never going to get there, and that's only to get $1,000 a month. Well, again, you have to go back to what we talked about earlier, which was you not only get the dividend payment, you also have that market capitalization where you've got stock that's valued at a certain amount of money, and that's going to increase over time as well. And $400,000 isn't insurmountable for many people. It's not as insurmountable as it may seem, especially if you're younger. I highly encourage you to start investing in these stocks, start building your portfolio. And one way you can get there a little bit faster if you want to get to that $1,000 a month in passive income is to invest in companies that pay higher than that 3%. But you want to be careful. You don't want to just use the stock screeners and look for companies that pay out a 6 or 8% dividend, because it may not be a good company long term. They may not be around. And so you really want to look for companies that are more stable. And that's why a lot of these companies that are on that Dividend Aristocrat List, I can't say it, I'm going to stumble over it every single time, guys, are in that 3% range, because those are the most stable companies. But you could use a smaller portfolio, say you've only got $150,000 in the market or so, and get to that $1,000 if you're picking companies that pay out a little bit more. So that's our video talking about dividends and investing in dividend stocks and how you can get to that passive income goal that you may have, or maybe you didn't know you had it and now you do. So if you have any questions, comment below. I'm more than happy to answer them as best I can. I will put some links in the description below to the FinViz stock screener and to the Dividend Aristocrats list. Yeah, I said it right that time. And some other tools and things. Let me know what you guys think about this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Hey, Greg here from Wealthfind. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click that icon right in the middle and you can continue getting content like this. I'd also love it if you'd leave a comment below this video. I do my best to respond to all of them. And lastly, thanks for watching.